So, so please give us a few moments to do that, and then we'll start our presentation. Okay, it looks like we have that we're letting people in, and people will continue to come in. If you'd like to give a shout out to anybody, we can have that. Otherwise, everyone's video and audio will be muted for this presentation. And if we can, we'd like to hold questions till the end. So let's start with that. And it looks like we have about 30 people now in the meeting, so we're gonna kick it off. And so I would like to thank everybody for taking time out of their day today to view this presentation with us. My name is Maria Minacucci. I am the co-chair of the Boise River Enhancement Network's Outreach Committee. And today we are fortunate to have Greg Kaltenecker with us to provide some information on an ongoing project on the Boise River. And I see people are still coming in to our meeting, so welcome. Just to give you a background on who we are the Boise River Enhancement Network. You can see that we're a network of people who live, work, and play in the Boise River watershed, who are dedicated to promoting the ecological enhancement of the river. Anyone can be a member of the Boise River Enhancement Network. There are no membership dues or anything like that, and we encourage everyone to become a member and to become involved in our projects and learning opportunities and volunteer opportunities and professional opportunities of our organization. We have a website that the URL is right there for you, and we also have social media. So we welcome you all to participate in whatever level you is appropriate for you. We have two upcoming presentations. The first one is on January 11th with Russ Whedon of Idaho Power on clean energy and river health. And then we have a second one in January on the 19th on climate action and river health with Steve Hubble from the city of Boise. Both of these presentations are over the lunch hour, and we hope that all of you and others can participate and learn about some other aspects of the Boise River's ecological health. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Adam. He's our fundraising chair, and he has a few words for all of us.
Hey, thanks, Maria. First of all, I just really like this picture here. It's so fitting for the time with it being cold outside, and it's a good representation of what we see in the morning out there on the river, and makes you want to go out and check it out more often. So it's a good reminder to go out and enjoy the beauty of the Boise River. We got two mallards hanging out in the water, and probably because it's warmer there than it is out in the air temperature. And so thank you all for attending, and please consider Bren in any donations for the end of the year. We're currently in our 10-year anniversary fundraising drive, and we're about 3/4 of the way to our $10,000 goal. So we'd really appreciate you all helping us get to that goal and passing it. This is also the last chance for becoming a founding friend of Bren. This is a program that continues to recognize the people that are a part of it. It's been in the works available for the past 3 years, and we're closing it at the end of the month. And so $150 will allow you to become a founding friend of Bren. And this gets you exclusive access to 2 events throughout each year going forward. That's just for founding friends. And it also gives you recognition throughout the year for being a founding friend. And you can donate via our website or by sending a check to our PO box that is also located on our website too. Along with that, we should thank our business sponsors for donating during 2021 and supporting Bren and the work that we are doing along the river. These businesses are Harris Ranch, Air, Kennedy Wilson, Stantec, Suez, Idaho River Sports, Odell Brewing, and the Harris Ranch Wildlife Mitigation Association. So please consider any presents you might be getting for the holidays to purchase those at these supporting organizations, because they indirectly support the Boise River as well. There's also a number of organizations down at the bottom of the screen here, and please take some time to take a look at them. And again, consider utilizing them in any purchases or project needs you might have going forward. And with that, I'll pass it off to Maria once again. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Adam. And now I'm going to turn the presentation over to Heidi Carlisle. She is the Education Director at the Idaho Mountain Bird Observatory, and she'll introduce the speaker for today's session. Take it away, Heidi.
Thanks, Maria. I'm happy to introduce my boss today, Greg Kaltenecker. He's the Diane and Winston Moore Family Endowed Director of the Intermountain Bird Observatory. And a lot of you probably know us as bird people, but Greg has actually been a river guy for a long time. So back when he was doing his master's thesis at Boise State, he actually studied bald eagles along the Boise River. So what he's going to talk about today has been sort of a dream for about 30 years. So I'm excited to let him present today about all the work that we've been doing on this project and give you guys some great updates. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg and let him do his screen share.
When you gave it over to me, I lost my bar now. How do I do my screen share?
Do you need to go into up
There
on
we
the
go.
right? You got it.
There we go.
Zoom likes to hide things sometimes.
How's that? Can you see it?
It's perfect, Greg. Thanks.
All right. I sure hope that's the right presentation now. I had 2 of them open. 30 years, Heidi. You make me sound old. Geez. Well, all right. Welcome, everybody, and thanks a lot for joining me today. I'm really excited to share this information with you today about our side channel project. This is kind of a new direction for us at the Bird Observatory. I really want you to be aware of this effort, know where it is, and know why it is that we're moving forward with this project, and really trying to understand how it fits into the main theme for this location. I wanted to make sure to thank all of our main partners on this project up front, and in particular, this side channel project would not have been possible without involvement from Micron, The overall project really aligns well with their corporate mission and the side channel project in particular with their current initiatives. And I'm really proud to be partnering with Micron on this effort. Also of note, I think to mention here, the the contractors that were selected to do the design and the construction work on the side channel project were River Design Group and Warner Construction. And I really can't say enough about what a pleasure it's been to work with both of these firms through this process. So I want to talk briefly, give you an outline. First of all, today I want to talk about who and what the IBO is. I want to go into the background behind this river project for us. I want to talk about our plans for the Diane Moore Nature Center, our goals for IBO working on the river, and then talk specifically about the side channel project. I want to give you a bit of a history of where this project began and how it got started, talk about the design, the permitting, and construction, and then a little bit about what's coming up next for us on the river. So first of all, the Intermountain Bird Observatory is a Boise State University program. We're located in the Department of Biological Sciences, so we're part of the College of Arts and Sciences. Our mission is to contribute to conservation through a combination of research, education, a discovery of nature, and community engagement. We've been a successful part of Boise State. We have a successful track record of over 25 years of research and community outreach in the Boise area. Just to kind of give you the lay of the land, for those of you who haven't visited the site, we're talking about the land just underneath the Highway 21 bridge as you drive toward the Black Cliffs and up toward Lucky Peak Dam. This site is actually located within what's known as Barber Pool. Barber Pool is more than 500-acre urban natural area that really serves as a wildlife refuge that's essentially located within the city limits of Boise, the state's capital. The adjacent properties to the site, which is outlined in green there, Idaho Foundation for Parks and Lands is a neighboring landowner. They're the organization that owns the majority of this Barber Pool, but also our property abuts up against Ada County. I don't see my labels on there. Ada County, Suez as well as a property owner across the river. And actually the site in green that's outlined there is actually two different landowners. ITD, the Idaho Transportation Department, owns a portion of it, as well as Boise State University. Oh, there we go. Idaho Foundation for Parks and Lands, Ada County. We're upstream of Barber Park, which is Ada County's facility, at least a couple of miles. And there's property owned by Suez. Let me go back there. So to begin with, this has been kind of a long process. Back in 2012, we began working with Idaho Transportation Department to transfer about 12 acres to Boise State University. This property was originally secured by ITD as riparian mitigation related to the Highway 21 bridge construction. What we ended up doing, rather than transferring the property, was that we negotiated a long-term management agreement with ITD. And this agreement allows Boise State, and in particular the Bird Observatory, to manage this property to improve native habitat, conduct research, and most importantly, to pursue community education. A couple of years later, the university actually purchased the adjoining property. This was in 2014. And we negotiated to purchase this adjoining property totaling over 10 acres. So now Boise State either owns or controls more than 22 acres of Boise River floodplain in Barber Pool. Several years ago, a local family, the family of Diane and Winston Moore, created an endowed fund for the Bird Observatory. And this fund generates interest annually that can be used to support different IBO programs. And so first and foremost, we structured a payment schedule using annual interest gained from this endowed fund to purchase and then pay off the property over time. This interest is also used to support our education director's annual salary, Heidi, who you heard from a little earlier. And it was also used, the interest from this endowed account was also used to complete the initial engineering or feasibility study for the side channel project. And this fund, it continues to spin off interest every year that's being used to complete a variety of tasks that are associated with development of the Diane Moore Nature Center. And so to recognize the incredible generosity of this local family, we decided to name the natural area in honor of the late Diane Moore. Our intent in developing the Diane Moore Nature Center is to create a lasting community legacy that's centered around the Boise River, its native habitat, and the wildlife that depend on it. We want this area to thrive for generations to come, and we aim to grow a community stewardship ethic there as well. So our vision for this property, we've created a vision over the years that includes designated human access points, a trail system, bridges that will span and protect riparian areas, as well as habitat improvements that include native plantings, weed control, and what I'm going to talk about today, rewatering What's
Sorry.
up?
Hey, Greg, there you go. You're back.
Okay, how long was I muted?
About 20 seconds.
Okay, do I need
Just
to
when
back up?
I think you're good.
All right, great. So our vision for this property also includes year-round educational programming for all ages, interpretive signing with help from community partners in design and placement of those signs, possibly wildlife viewing structures that will allow visitors to view but not disturb or displace wildlife. And I'll also throw out here, even though this is not really a fundraising presentation today, but I wouldn't be doing my job really if I didn't extend a big thank you to all of you in the audience who have already made financial gifts to this project. It really wouldn't have happened without you. And there are still components of this vision that do need funding. So there are naming opportunities available, you know, for in various ranges and for various components of this vision. So I'll just throw that out there. You know, another important part of this future vision for the property is that the city of Boise plans to build a new city park on the property directly adjacent across the green belt along Warm Springs Avenue. And the original plan for the Sioux Howell Park was to feature exercise and science as park themes. I think this is still the plan. The park is going to connect visitors with the green belt, but because the two properties are adjacent, it'll also connect visitors to the Diane Moore Nature Center. Visitors will to the park and nature center will find hopefully shared features such as bus accessible parking, restrooms, amphitheater space, and all these features will help us engage and support our long-term community education goals at the Diane Moore Nature Center. So really this vision is to manage these two properties in a complementary way for, to have a park for people and a natural area for wildlife right next to each other. And much of this community outreach that I'm talking about has already begun. You may have already been involved with the IBO in some way. I noticed a lot of familiar names on the list today. So you might be familiar with how we're engaging the community, but I want to highlight the variety of programming that's ongoing at the Diane Moore Nature Center and talk about our future plans as well. First off, thanks to Heidi and other staff members, we're very passionate about education, and we don't just limit that to K through 12. We provide what we call K through Gray, which is education opportunities for all ages. Thanks to a huge number of community partners, we're already working to restore upland and riparian habitats at the site. We've planted over 4,000 native plants so far over the last 3-4 falls now, I think. And once the side channel is complete, we'll have even more opportunities for volunteers to dive in. So if you haven't already, we invite you to join us for one of our community planning days, and there should be some of those coming up within the next few months. One of the reasons we're so happy to have this site and to be developing the Diane Moore Nature Center is that it provides the perfect opportunity for students to really study in an outdoor laboratory. Our field trips aren't just tours of the site for students. We get students involved in science firsthand. Even little second graders from Answer Charter School have helped us collect useful plant survival data in our habitat restoration experiments. So along with field trips, we also offer independent projects as well as internships that are perfect for older K through 12 students and university students alike. And this area really, it's just the perfect place for the community to learn about the Boise River, its natural processes, and its importance to native wildlife and habitat. At the Diane Moore Nature Center, you can really get your hands dirty with volunteer work at our, on our habitat restoration projects. And I think I mentioned since 2018, I think about 400 of you have joined us at the site to plant these 4,000 native plants. You've also helped us with weeding, with cleanup, and as well as monitoring the success of our restoration efforts. We've also been lucky, very lucky, I think, to host a number of Girl Scout and Eagle Scout projects down at the site as well. So, and the last thing I want to mention about the Diane Moore Nature Center is that the site, isn't just about the programming that IBO offers or is going to offer in the future. We want this nature center to be a place that our community can use and visit anytime, whether we're there leading an activity or not. It's a great place for fishing, for bird watching, for walking, hiking along the river. And we're excited to see how the side channel project is going to enhance those recreation activities for the public. The side channel, we think, is going to help us encourage respectful use at the site by allowing us to limit access to a few key points where we can have educational signage and be able to divert traffic to these designated trails, and thus improving habitat overall at the site. One really unfortunate thing about COVID and just, I think, the growth of our community in general is that we've seen a huge increase in human use at this site over the past couple of years, and it's definitely not all beneficial or compatible use. Things like graffiti, partying, camping, mountain bike use, off-leash dogs, and of course all their poop, and other uses are really they're really impacting vegetation at the site now. So we feel there's an immediate need, to start controlling access, confining human use, and to try and establish these compatible and respectful use patterns in this area, into the future. If you've been down there recently, you may have noticed these new signs. Some of them have graffiti on them now, of course. But anyway, I want to start talking about the side channel project itself. You're probably wondering, when is this guy actually going to start talking about the side channel? But because of so many dams on this system, past channelization, flood control efforts, and our human structures along the river, there's really relatively few places where it's still possible to do a project like this. And yet, though, there's a growing interest among many and among many of you that I see in the audience today to begin, trying to experiment with creating side channels and using side channels as one way to restore historic river function. One of our main goals with this project is to create a self-sustaining side channel of the Boise River by reconnecting a historic channel with the main stem. We want to support natural processes that will increase complexity of the system, improve floodplain connectivity, improve water quality, and help to reduce or moderate temperatures as well. Benefits from this side channel are going to include things like improved riparian vegetation, not only improved vegetation, but the side channel is actually increasing the amount of wetlands on the site as well. It's going to help support natural cottonwood regeneration at this site. It's going to create spawning and brood rearing habitat for fish as well, and increase macroinvertebrates. So this process started, I'm getting ahead of myself. Increased macroinvertebrates, and none of this should be new information to Bren for sure, and most of you in the audience as well. In fact, in Bren's 2015 Boise River Enhancement Plan, they actually they talk about the benefits of side channels and recommend creating more side channels along the Boise River. And indeed, in the reach where our project is located, there is actually fewer of what Bren calls habitat units. These are pools, riffles, and runs than many of the downstream sections. This is also pointed out in their Boise River Enhancement Plan. So let me give you a little bit of history of how the side channel projects actually got started. We began this process about 4 years ago. Since we're a university program, we're a state entity, we had to work through the Department of Public Works.
It's special.
At the state level to select a contractor. And our first step was to conduct a feasibility study and generate a concept design. We engaged Jacobs, formerly CH2M Hill, to do this work. And in my opinion, their team really did an excellent job for us in creating this sort of concept design for the side channel. One of the related tasks during this process, this concept design process, was that we had to engage and involve local stakeholders and local landowners. And it just turns out that Suez and Micron share an intake on the Boise River directly across the river from this property. And so this is how Micron originally got involved and sort of became aware of the project and began to become interested in helping make it happen in our community. I won't go through all this, but you know, again, this project hasn't happened overnight. You know, starting with back in 2011 is when we began working with ITD. For example, you know, it took almost an entire year was spent in negotiations with Micron, gaining approvals from Boise State University, and then all the way up to the State Board of Education, and then on Micron's contractor selection process. We spent well over a year investing in the design process, as well as pursuing 20 different, at least 20 different permits and authorizations that were needed to begin construction from the city, the county, the state, and federal authorities. And after all that, construction was compressed into a 6 or 8 week window to try and meet all of these permit requirements. Coming up in the spring, a revegetation effort will be undertaken early spring. And then of course, there will be lifetimes of maintenance, monitoring, and stewardship activities as a result of this project. So again, I won't go through all of these, but here's a matrix sort of showing all of the different permitting. And when we applied, when we were working with these different agencies to gain, you know, all of these permits and authorizations to do the work, it was pretty mind-boggling. It's actually kind of a miracle that it all, you know, did come together in time to construct during this short window this fall and winter. So, all right, well, here's probably why you tuned in, not to listen to me, but to see photos of this whole process. And I think this is a good one. This shows where this process started. This is existing vegetation at the site along the alignment of the side channel before construction activities started. The cottonwoods in green are trees that were taken out. We did take out a number of cottonwoods. We continued to modify the design as time went on, and to create meanders to miss as much vegetation as we could. However, there were a number of cottonwoods that were taken out to do this project. Here's what it looks like after the vegetation was removed. The vegetation was piled up and temporarily stored. And then actually all of it, every bit of it was reincorporated back into the design. The next phase of this process is what the contractors call Mass X. See, I learned a whole bunch of new terms during this process. And so this is mass excavation, where they're removing as much material as they can and then hauling it off-site. This material was not dumped on the ground. It was immediately loaded into this rock hopper here and moved off-site. During this whole process, there was one of these guys there with a GPS unit, making sure that the excavation was done as per plan. This is what the channel looks like, kind of roughed out with the Mass X done. The material was hauled across the green belt and into kind of a temporary staging area. And then it was hauled off site. I want to highlight a number of features that were incorporated into the side channel design. This is a slide of the crew putting in a monitoring device or a measuring device So basically a water control structure. As part of our water right, the stipulation of one of the stipulations of the water right is that we needed to have these water control structures, not only at the intake, but at the outflow or very near the outflow as well, so that we could measure the flow. We applied for and received a non-consumptive water right. And so we had to have the ability to prove that this water use was actually non-consumptive. And so this was quite a process. Here they are excavating for this water control structure. Here's kind of the finished product. You can see these concrete boxes. I think there are 6 of them that make up this water control structure. Note the silt bags here, keeping sediment and any suspended solids out of the river. This is kind of what it looks like when it's all done. Here's a crew actually installing the monitoring device. It sits there along the side of the channel with a solar panel generating data. So pretty interesting stuff, I thought. This is the one at the upstream end of the channel. Notice that there's the ability here to put stop boards in this water control structure to actually stop flow into the channel when the river is below our target. I think the engineering design called for the side channel to have 25 to 30 CFS when the river reaches 600 CFS at the Glenwood gauge. And so until it reaches 600 CFS, we're required to actually stop flow as much as we can into the side channel. So that's the upstream water control device. What was really interesting to me, being not only a biologist, but also a fly fisherman and someone who is into conservation of the Boise River, was to see how the design incorporated all this woody debris and these different materials back into the channel. Here's an example of woody debris being placed into a pool. So another thing I want to point out is that there are a number of habitat features throughout the length of this side channel. It's not all the same width and depth. It's not all the same elevation. There are pools that were engineered, riffles and runs, and each one of the pools has at least, one of these woody debris piles that were engineered into it, so that this is showing the woody debris, in an unfinished state, showing how it's anchored in to the bank with boulders, and this is later covered up so that the woody debris, sticks out into this pool and has area underneath it and, behind and even within to create fish habitat. So it was really pretty cool to see all of this come together for me. This is looking downstream from this point, where I'm standing down. It's more or less a finished product. You can see in the foreground, the end result of that woody debris into one of the pools. You can also see how the contractors placed all of these, the cottonwoods that were taken out back into the design as, as woody debris along the banks, even as wildlife snags. And then all of the brush was placed again back onto the banks of the, of the channel. So, here's kind of a close-up of one of the riffles with spawning size gravel that was placed on the riffle. In the background, another view of that woody debris in one of the pools. You can see the boulders that were sourced locally and placed in the channel as well to provide fish habitat and roughness yeah. So here's another view of that spawning gravel on the riffle. This is the downstream end, right where the outflow goes back, back into the main stem. And this is more or less the finished product here. And note, the cobbles that were placed along the, the sandy banks, and these are to really help hold that sand back and maintain the shape and kind of integrity of the side channel here. You can see the woody debris and the boulders that were incorporated into the design, and that woody debris is very, very well anchored, so it won't float at high water and float off. And then the brush that was placed on top of everything as well. So really, really interesting, and I think they did a great job. Another one of the features is that we needed to maintain vehicle access to the site. And so this is actually along the main access road. The contractors ended up doing what's called an armored crossing. It's still under construction here, but basically this armored crossing allows for a vehicle to cross into the site, thinking about needing to get emergency vehicles or monitoring equipment, into the site, into the future. And so these rock sills end up sitting at the same elevation as the bottom of the channel. And then in between the rock sills, it's filled with gravel to create a hard surface for vehicles to drive on. So they're still working on this, but anyway, that's another feature. Here we are at the top end of the channel looking upstream. This is before it's connected to the river. Again, note the brush, right? Clumps of willows that were incorporated into the banks. Just below this, so just below this point, this is looking upstream. This is looking back downstream. Here, the engineer and the construction crews are working on a couple of rock sills. So there are these rock sills made out of boulders about this size that actually set the elevation of the intake. And they're, I'm not an engineer, so I'm having a hard time explaining myself, but they set the elevation of the intake so that high water events, can't change the intake and end up capturing the entire river if there was a blowout or something like that. Another feature of this intake, you can see in the foreground here, the finished product, one of these rock sills. There's a couple of them there, but there's also an apex jam. And this apex jam is made out of woody debris. That woody debris is anchored in there with boulders, and it's below the ground, several feet. And this apex jam helps to divert water into the side channel, but it also helps protect that inlet structure. So it was pretty neat watching this all come together. Note, just a few weeks after it was put in, beavers are already working on some of these cottonwoods in the apex jam, but those things go down, several feet into the ground there. Here's an engineer working, really every step of the way with the GPS unit to make sure we're at the right elevation as we get closer and closer to connecting with the river. Here they are again, working at the inlet before connecting to the river or the main stem. So what's next? The next thing for us, kind of the next phase, is we have to go through this process all over again to design and permit paths and bridges at the site. Remember, I mentioned earlier that our kind of grand vision is to have one trail system, not the maze and network of social trails that are out there now. We want to have one trail that confines human use. And now that the side channel, is going to be complete, we want to continue to have public access to the site. And so we're going to need a couple of bridges to allow the public to get over the side channel and out onto the site. So we estimate this is going to be about another year or more long process to design and permit these features. Number of permits involved, again, at all levels to do this. We're working on that now with River Design Group under a separate contract from the side channel. The bridges we're talking about look similar to these, not exactly, but they'll be similar to this design, spanning the side channel, allowing for pedestrian access. These are actually vehicle bridges, so they'll be quite a bit smaller than this, but a similar concept and similar design. We're really excited to start working with all of our existing community partners, as well as new community partners like Boise Valley Fly Fishers, as an example, to create interpretive signage, to create some designated access points for fly fishermen, things like that. We're really excited to get moving on community partnerships like this. And of course, I could never talk about the IBO without mentioning our bird research as well. We've now been studying breeding birds at this site since 2015. So we have a great data set that I think is going to allow us to measure the impacts, hopefully all positive, of the side channel improvements on the bird communities there. And I'm already imagining all kinds of student projects that can be done using our data that will help us understand this ecosystem restoration project over the years, as the vegetation comes back and it fills in, and great things happen, I hope. So again, I want to thank everybody that's tuned in today, and especially thank all of our partners. I will leave you with this.
Well, thank you, Greg. That is a great presentation.
I had one more slide.
Okay.
If I can get to it.
There you go.
There you go. So
That is pretty amazing. I guess we should be happy for motorized construction equipment. To do that all by hand would be quite a job.
yeah.
Well, Greg, if you have the time, we have a couple questions in our chat box for you.
Sure. I'll see if I can answer them. Hopefully I can.
Okay. Well, the first one is about the instrumentation that you have on site, and whether you've been able to learn anything yet about the potential connection to groundwater within the side channel.
Yeah, so that was all part of the concept design, as well as the last year and a half of design for the construction itself. We put in a number of different piezometers there are a number of wells existing on the site already. Was I muted? I'm sorry.
No, I don't think so, Greg.
Okay.
You're good to go.
Okay, yeah, so there are a number of existing groundwater wells on the site already that are part of Boise State's geoscience program. They've been doing, groundwater infiltration monitoring there for over a decade, 22 decades, I think. So we did have a fair amount of information about groundwater and the height of groundwater. And then what we found during excavation is that groundwater, yes, was seeping into the channel, the finished product and was trickling through just a little bit, but we did connect with groundwater, which was a hope of ours to maintain flow during the low water winter months, as well as help to moderate temperatures. So, yep, our planning and research proved to be true at this point. And this is also new. The monitoring devices are not, we're not actually collecting data yet, and that will start this spring. But so yeah, I'm excited to see what we find out.
That's great. I'm sure that you're going to generate some very useful data. Our second question is about the changes that may have occurred during the design and permitting of the project. Did you experience significant changes as you went through that parallel process of designing the project in conjunction with the requirements of the different permitting agencies?
There were some like requirements of the upstream and downstream, measuring devices and control structures and things like that. But I think overall, it's a several step process. You start with a concept, and then you go to a 30% and a 60%. And then I think it's the 60% design that is submitted with the permitting. And then from there you go to the final or the 100% design. And we did make some, minor modifications on site to sort of fit the situation on site. But those were really to reduce the amount of vegetation taken out and increase the amount of complexity in the channel. There were I can't think of any. There were not any major changes once we got to about the 60% design.
Well, that's great. That means people did their homework before they plunged in. So that's very, very helpful. You mentioned that the channel has a concrete structure to regulate flow. And so are there times when, for instance, during winter, when no water enters the side channel? Yes, at least that's the way our water right reads, is that water is not supposed to enter the channel until the river reaches 600 CFS at the Glenwood gauge. Now, in reality, there's going to be some seepage around that water control structure, and there's also, groundwater seeping in. So, our hope is that it will have some flow during the winter, but really the design was to provide, fish habitat during the months of the year. So March through July, August, during the months of the year when trout are spawning in the river, and when juveniles would be, wanting to get out of the main stem during high flows, that sort of thing. So right, that was our goal. Yeah, that's an interesting portion of the project. Mm-hmm. Are you monitoring that side channel for aquatic invertebrates? Yeah, actually, the city of Boise is partnering with us, and they've come up with a very, very detailed monitoring plan. And they, they're monitoring at least a dozen or more different variables, on the river in this reach.
and it's kind of a long-term plan. I noticed that Doreen McCoy is on the Zoom today, but she's the one who really put this monitoring plan together. So yeah, they'll be monitoring a number of different variables, and some related to invertebrates.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Another question is whether the design included flood accommodation.
Well, basically, yeah. I mean, yes. Now I'm not an engineer, so I can't talk that intelligently about any of these things. But yeah, I mean, sure. It's a side channel, and so during flood flows, it's going to act like a like a natural side channel would. It would come up and hold flood flows, and then even overflow its banks, just like this area did before the side channel. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but all those features, the apex jam, the sills, the rock sills, and all those are hopefully going to guarantee that it won't blow out during flood flows. Was that the question?
Yes, I think so. And also, given flood conditions on the Boise River and the efforts up and down the river to create some more riparian area that can accommodate flood flows versus, the historic channeling of the river.
Right. Well, I mean, that's honestly one of the goals of the project. And, the modeling that was done, shows that there's a net gain. So a net gain in wetlands and no net rise, right? So
Right.
The whole project results in no net rise of the Boise River. So
we have just a couple quick questions. Are there any plans to stock this area with trout or anything else, I guess?
not that I know of. There are trout in this area. It's a very, very popular fishing area. Any day of the week, you can see, half a dozen or more fly fishermen. So that must tell me that there's a good population there already. Fish and Game monitors this area. I believe they do, monitoring for what's the word, for juvenile trout. But I don't believe there's any planned efforts for stocking. I don't believe stocking occurs in this reach, and actually I know that there's some interest, among the fly fishing groups to eventually have this area denoted as a catch and release only. So, but we're hoping, last summer, I was going to put a slide in there. Last summer, I took photos of rainbows spawning in the main stem right along the edge of this property, basically right under the Highway 21 bridge. And so, we're really hoping that this side channel increases the trout population and provides more habitat for not only spawning trout, but brood rearing habitat as well. So
great. And there's also additional information in the chat box for folks about the specifics about both the monitoring plan and the trout stocking efforts by Fish and Game. One last question, Greg. What lessons have you learned from this project?
You have to live a long time if you want to do something like this.
Yeah, things take time.
That's and it's very, very complicated, way more complicated than I ever imagined. The permitting process, like I said, it's really a miracle that it happened in the short time frame that it did, even though it wasn't a short time frame in my opinion. But it's very, very involved, and I mean, there are experts out there that really know their stuff. And I don't know, maybe Heidi has learned some lessons, but I mean, we've learned so much. It'd be hard to encapsulate it all, but yeah, these things take time. That's the biggest lesson, I guess.
Well, thank you very much, Greg, for this presentation. I certainly learned a few things, and it's great to see those construction pictures. It gives you an idea of, you know, besides all the paperwork and chasing down, the actual project itself is quite extensive, and you can see why it requires all of that planning. So I want to thank everyone for attending today, and I hope that you reach out and visit us on our website or one of our social media sites, and that you're able to attend some of our future presentations. And again, thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
And this program was recorded and will be available on Bren's YouTube channel. And you can show it in classrooms or in club meetings or however you would like it.
Yeah, thank you, Liz. Thank you for that reminder.
Sure thing.